Good morning, boys and girls. It's time for Bible. Mr. Tebbens is going to help me out today, and he is going to film from behind me while I tell you the lesson about the next judge. Well, really, we're going to review what we've been talking about, honestly. We're not talking about the next judge yet. We're talking about Deborah, the prophetess, remember? And she does become the judge. And we're going to review a little bit because we haven't had Bible for a while. So I'm going to hand this to Mr. Tebbens, and then I'm going to start. Okay, so if you remember, Deborah was the prophetess that God appointed in Israel. And she was very brave, and she was very wise. And she loved and worshiped the true God. She would remind people of God's commands, and they would come to her from all parts of the land to talk to her. These were very hard days for Israel, because if you remember, King Jabin, the Canaanite ruler, made life unbearable for the Israelites. And if you remember, Sisera, who was in charge, the general in charge of Jabin's army, he was really ruthless and evil and cruel. So one day, God assured Deborah that he was going to deliver Israel from the Canaanite bondage. So Deborah sent for the top officer. Remember, his name was Barak. And he came to meet her by the palm tree where she used to sit all the time. And she told Barak about what God had talked to her about. And then she told Barak the plan. The Lord God of Israel has commanded you to mobilize 10,000 men and lead them against General Sisera's army. You and the army are to march to Mount Tabor, and the enemy will be drawn to the Kishon River. And that's where you're going to defeat them. Well, Barak, he understood that God had said that they would have victory, but he still had a lot of fear in his heart. And he said to Deborah, I will only go into battle against the Canaanites if you go with me. All right, said Deborah, but I must tell you now, the honor of conquering Sisera will not go to you. It will go to a woman. As the battle began, if you remember, Deborah said, Up, for this is the day the Lord has given you for victory over Sisera. Then Barak, in the lead with the Israelite army, charged down the mountainside and attacked Sisera and his men. And there was a huge battle that followed. In the confusion of the battle, Sisera left his chariot, left his men, let them continue fighting, but he ran to escape being captured by Israel. Barak and his men chased the Canaanites until all of Sisera's army was destroyed. That's Sisera. And this is going to be a woman named Jael. Listen to what happens. So meanwhile, while his men were fighting and getting killed, Sisera escaped and ran. And he ran until he came to the tent of a woman named Jael, where he had hoped to find safety and rest. Jael looked out her tent and saw Sisera coming. She recognized him at once as the general of the Canaanite army. But what Sisera did not know was that Jael was an Israelite. So she pretended to be friendly, and she went out meeting him, saying, Oh, come in, my lord. Come in, do not be afraid. You will be safe in my tent. Thinking she was a friend of the Canaanites, Sisera entered Jael's tent. He lay down to rest, and Jael covered him with a blanket. I'm thirsty, Sisera said. Please give me some water. So she opened up a skin of milk, and she gave him some warm milk to drink. And then she covered him back up again. Sisera was very exhausted and needed to sleep. But first he wanted to make sure he was going to be safe. So he said to Jael, stand at the doorway of this tent and watch. If someone comes and asks, is anyone here? Say no. And don't let anyone know I'm here. Then Sisera fell into a very deep sleep. He was completely exhausted. After some time, knowing that Sisera was in a deep, deep sleep, Jael picked up a sharp tent spike and a hammer. And she quietly creeped up to Sisera, laying on the ground. She put the tent spike on the side of his forehead and drove the tent spike through his forehead, pounding it with the hammer. And he was spiked into the ground. That day, Sisera died by the hand of a woman. The woman named Jael. The woman who pretended to be his friend. But she really worshiped the one true God. And she knew how evil that Sisera was. Sorry. So sorry, boys and girls. Later that day, when Barak came looking for Sisera, Jael went out to meet him. Come, I will show you who you are looking for. So Barak followed Jael into her tent. And there he saw Sisera laying dead with a tent spike through his forehead. Sisera had been defeated at the hand of a woman, just like Deborah said. Israel's victory over the Canaanites was so great, and Israel's freedom from Canaanite power was so complete, that as a nation, the Canaanites never attempted to regain their independence. After the battle was over, Deborah and Barak thanked God for his wonderful intervention. They gave him all the credit and all the glory, the Lord God of heaven, for the mighty victory. And Deborah went on to judge Israel for 40 years. And during that time, in the land, they had rest and they had peace. They were able to worship the Lord. They enjoyed prosperity. At last, you would think that Israel had learned its lesson. And now maybe God would be able to bless them the way he wanted to. But no, it was not to be. For once again, after Deborah's death, the Israelites began to worship other gods, and they did evil things in the sight of the Lord. How sad God was for his people. They turned away from him. Boys and girls, we must pray that we never do the same. Now, you want a preview? That was pretty big, wasn't it? Jael. She was so brave. I wonder if her hand was shaking when she was doing that. I think that the Lord gave Sisera that deep, deep sleep. And can you believe that after Deborah died, the Israelites turned away from God again? Well, here is a preview of what's coming up next. And I will tell you about that the next time we have Bible. I love you, boys and girls. Bye for now.